Alrighty, folks, it's time for the Sound of Freedom review. So, this movie, again, couldn't be any more different than Asteroid City. Asteroid City is, for the most part, pretty chill. It's pretty laid back. Lots of scenic landscapes and pretty visuals, and you're pretty much enjoying yourself the whole time. Not so with Sound of Freedom. Sound of Freedom is pretty intense. It's a pretty emotional film. It's a pretty powerful movie, to be honest. It really is. And I went into this movie very skeptical of it because it's the current right-wing culture war. Let's hop on the bandwagon to own the libs, and we owned the woke Indiana Jones on America's Day, July 4th. The sound of freedom rang, and woke Indiana. Down goes Indy, down goes Indy, down goes the wokesters. Whoa, we did it, bros, we're winning. And everybody's hopping on the bandwagon, and there's this big push to buy it, pay it forward, buy tickets for people. The movie and the end credits, and this is one thing that I think diminishes it, but at the same time, I do think it's an important movie, and I think the most people that can see it, the more people that can see it, the better. But there's this push to buy tickets for other people and to pay it forward, and it's a real message movie, and is this just a political grift? And it's like the studio that made it is Angel Studios, and they're this Christian studio, and Christian studios aren't necessarily known for their quality so much as they are for their pandering. And I was really worried that this movie was going to be a pandering mess, that it was going to be very exploitative. I had heard that the opening scene in the film was very shocking and very intense and, left people crying. And so I was really prepared for something very graphic, very exploitative, something that was kind of gonna revel in this. It does not. It's not lingering on it. It's not but it allows you to fill in the blanks in your mind with some of the scenes. One of the scenes that's most powerful is a scene where these children that are being trafficked are put on a shipping container, on a cargo ship, and they're being taken hundreds or thousands of miles away from where they're from. And you see the children in that environment, and you think about just the loss of innocence. You think about the torment, the fear that they must be going through. And you don't need to see, what the bathroom situation would be like there. They don't need to show you stuff like that. But you understand just how horrible this is. And the movie is very respectful in its treatment of this material. And it's very powerful. And the theater I was in, during the scenes where the young boy and the young girl in this movie are being trafficked, they're being inducted into the sex slavery trade, people were crying. There was a grown man right next to me who was sobbing. There was very few dry eyes in this theater. It's very, very effective at reaching people who are normal, who aren't so used to that sort of subject matter being in their daily life. Like, because I'm terminally online, I've been desensitized to a lot of things. You know, you hear a lot about Pizzagate and child sex trafficking and the pedophile elite, and you hear a lot of that in the political circles that I'm in, right? But even I was tearing up at the scene where the father is talking to the Department of Homeland Security agent, I guess Jim Cazzavelli or whatever his name is, about like being a father and how he would feel if there was an empty bed in his home. And there was a lot of emotion there, and the performances were really good. But I was so skeptical going into it. You know, the trailers before the movie were all these piece of crap other movies that this studio's putting out, really melodramatic, over-the-top stuff. But you could tell that the team behind this really did care about making it as authentic, as grounded, but as emotionally powerful for the average person as humanly possible. I think this movie is actually a very important movie in the sense that I think it will put, you know, because people say, oh, well, it's already universally condemned. Yeah, everybody out there except for the sick people like Nick Fuentes and Ralph and Andrew Anglin and those fucking sick pedophile people, or at least if they're not outright pedophiles, pedophile apologists who wish to abolish the age of consent or make it like 10 and talk about forced child marriages. So I was watching the movie, I thought, how the fuck did these guys get away with that? And they still have an audience. This guy's getting invited onto Fresh and Fit like nothing's wrong when there's clearly something wrong. Apologies, the camera ran out of memory there. But as I was saying, even though it is universally condemned and every person's like, yeah, I'm against that, it's not something that everybody knows how big of a trade this is, how widespread it is, how many millions of children and even adults as well are sex trafficked and sold into sex slavery. Not everybody knows how widespread the issue was. And the movie was very effective in imparting that information on the statistics of it in dialogue. And it was a little forced in there, a little shoehorned in. But it was important that it be shoehorned in. And it did work with the narrative. It did work within it. But as a critic, you go, okay, well, this a little bit shoehorned in, these stats and stuff like that. And there's also, even though we say there's a lot of enthusiasm to go after this topic and to have activism and to provide law enforcement with the resources and the will, there's not as much as you would think there is. You know, this isn't something that people are encountering in their day-to-day lives, and if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And this movie makes you confront it. It makes you look at the evil. It makes you look at the darkness. And it's not in a child pornography way or in an erotic way. It just shows how disgusting, how evil this is without reveling in it, without being exploitative of it. And I think that's its greatest accomplishment. And I do think it's important that people see this movie. I think this movie will make a lot of people very angry, very upset, very emotional. And when people are emotional, that's when they take action. And so I think that that's important. And it made me think, what more can I be doing? You know, and it's something that everybody needs to consider. You know, am I donating to the right causes? Am I speaking out as much as I could on these issues? Am I volunteering for organizations? There's things that we can do on these issues, and we need to do as much as is realistic for each of us to do according to our abilities. And of course, there's other fights that are very important as well. But particularly in the realm of politics today, with what people are trying to normalize, and some of these like MAP type people that are trying to advocate that pedophilia is okay, or people that try and deny that this happens at all and say it's all just a schizo nonsense. It is not. It is I think he said $150 billion a year industry. They said, it's true, this is now a larger industry than firearms. It's crazy. It's crazy. So there is a real fight against it. And the movie does, however, have its flaws. The movie does have some flaws. The third act kind of just becomes almost a generic action film. And while there is a lot of catharsis in seeing that third act, it's not as powerful as the climax. And you see things in it that, almost you're like, is this like a reference to Epstein's Island? Is this a reference to Ghislaine Maxwell? But they're not actually, because the movie was made before that case broke, I believe. The movie's been sitting in limbo for 5 years. So sometimes I thought, this is kind of corny, this island or whatever, raid. And I don't want to spoil too much of the movie because I want you to see it for yourself. But I don't think those stories had broke. I just think that was kind of an open secret, and that is a very common trope throughout this sort of thing, that you have this woman that's probably been trafficked herself, that becomes like the madame, becomes inducting these children into the trade. Stuff like that, could have been a criticism, but I think it was fine. There's a few things that are kind of cringy, but at the same time, they're badass, like when he's felting the one pedophile and he's quoting the Bible. And if you offend one of these little ones, it'd be better for you if a millstone was put around your neck and you were cast into the sea. And, God's children aren't for sale. But it is powerful. But you feel a little bit, you're like, this is kind of pandering to Jesus and Mark. But you know what? I am about that. So I like it. But I could see why some liberals would be a bit seething. But the movie is not political, really. There's references to faith and Christ throughout it. That's a big undercurrent throughout the film. But honestly, this movie shouldn't be a right-left wing issue. Everybody should be able to understand that this movie is powerful. It creates strong emotions within people. It draws awareness to this issue. It's very competently made. There's a few things where it falls short, maybe some of the acting, maybe in that third act where it kind of becomes like a generic action film. Maybe in some parts too preachy or too ham-fisted, inserting statistics into dialogue. But overall, this is a really good, thriller. I mean, your parents will love this movie. Boomers are going to love this movie. I mean, there was a lot of old people, and there was a lot of people in the theater, and I saw it late. And so I think the word of mouth on this is going to be tremendous. It's going to have a lot of legs. I think it's an important movie, for sure. It's definitely one of the better culture war pieces of ammunition that the right wing has received in a long time. Most of the movies we get are shit. This one, very well done. That being said, is it super enjoyable? Is it a happy, fun time? No. No, it's not. You're going to be pissed off. You're going to be rattled. But there's a catharsis. There's an emotional catharsis to it. It pays off. It's good. It's good. It's not... I mean, some people are hyping it to the fucking sun, the moon, and the stars. If you go in with a reasonable expectation of what this movie is, because I thought it was probably going to be a piece of shit, to be honest. If you go in with a reasonable expectation, you're gonna have a... I don't know if it's a good time. It's a good time. But it's like a stressful, emotional... time where you're going to be filled with, I think, either anger or sadness, or if you have any sort of empathy, if you're a big soft pussy like PPP, you know, and you have empathy for children being trafficked, then you're going to have that reaction. But I recommend that people see it, and if you can see it in a theater, go see it in a theater. This movie should be supported. The studio behind it, are they perfect? Obviously not. But they're probably better than most studios to give your money to. So if you're going to go see movies in the theater, you may as well go see The Sound of Freedom. All right, see ya.